Hey, welcome back to the program. Good to have you with us here on Coastal Daybreak on the Talk Station. We like to talk to authors who are especially from North Carolina when we find out what they're writing about. Andrea Bishop joins us next. She's a family therapist living in Nashville. Good morning, Andrea. How are you?
Good morning.
It's good to have you with us here today. And Andrea has a book out that's called 7 Secrets of Couples Who Found and Kept Long-Term Love, titled Happy Marriages. And tell us, how did you come to write this book?
Well, I share referrals with a number of other professionals in my community, and I was talking to a guy once who was a divorced person, and we shared a number of clients, and one of the things that came out of his mouth was, gosh, not only for myself, but for the people that I work with, I really wish there was more out there on what made marriages successful, and, really explored for people that have been married a long time, what really worked for them, where they could share that to other people. And I thought that was just a beautiful, simple idea. And it took me a few years to put into motion, but I really think I've found something successful here to share with people. And people that I've interviewed were so happy to share their point of view on things.
Well, we're about to, in a couple of weeks, we'll celebrate our 29th anniversary. My youngest son is in his 3rd week of marriage. So we have the bookends here. So what can we learn from each other?
Well, I think that there is a lot to learn from each other. I think that many of us are from divorced families, and if not from divorced families, have certainly witnessed some things that were less than ideal in our own families' relationships. And you only know what you learn. And one of the things that I think our culture has done a poor job of is preparing people how to be in a long-term relationship or married.
Yeah.
We get more driver's education than we do marriage education in most cases. And, I really think talking with people that have been in a relationship for a long time gives us an opportunity to talk about what things worked for them. And so at least there's some degree of, okay, these are things that did work. I mean, we've all got our bad habits and may fall into those bad habits. And what I find is that when people are under stress, they tend to go back to what they learned in their family of origin. In some cases, that's yelling or name-calling or going silent or whatever. And at least with talking to some people that have managed to stay married a long time, it gives you an idea of some things that you can do that are more productive when things are going poorly, or how to maintain. That is something that is in short supply. How to maintain things that are going well. How do we keep cultivating a plant that's already growing well?
Right.
And keep things moving in the right direction rather than waiting for a crisis to work on it.
Well, it's interesting that you make that comparison between driver's ed and marriage education, because some of us would say after we get married, we go through driver's ed all over again.
Well,
I say that really because let's talk about the role, though, of humor in some of those things as well. My wife and I, we laugh every day. I think that's one of our secrets.
Yes. And humor can be a wonderful diffuser. Many years ago when I was in graduate school, I cleaned houses for a living, and I found myself kind of doing counseling on occasion with people whose houses I cleaned, because I would tell them about my schooling and they would tell me about their lives. And one guy told me that one of the best things he ever did when his wife was mad at him is take a pair of what he called then her granny panties and stick them on his head and walk around the house in them when she would refuse to speak to him. And
sort of breaks the ice.
Yes. Well, first of all, I really didn't need the visual, but once I had it, I've had it for 20 years. But he said, she couldn't stay mad at him and silent with that. And I think there is something to that you've got to decide to, like, if something happened to you tomorrow, would I want it to end on a silent note? And you got to remember that 20 years from now, is this argument going to matter? And in most cases, it isn't.
Yes.
So you've got to come
in
to
20
a place
minutes
of
now,
how do I
from
get
now,
past
it may
it?
not. So, yeah.
In 20 minutes from now, it may not. Right. In the grand scheme of things, when you hear about these bombings on TV or these shootings that are going on in the world, does the fact that my husband forgot to take out the trash really matter? So, there's always going to be those things that tick us off about each other. And I joke with couples that strangulation seems like a viable option to a nonviolent person at times within a marriage. But, you've got to come to a way of getting past it and shifting the dynamic.
So again, diffusers like that description, yes. Which is going to be my visual now.
Yes, I know, and you're welcome.
Thank you. Again, we're talking with Andrea Bishop about the book "Happy Marriages: 7 Secrets of Couples Who Found and Kept Long-Term Love." Now, let me start with a foundational question here, though. Do you think that relationships have a better chance of being long-term married as opposed to not married?
I don't know that I feel strongly one way or the other. I do feel like there is something about the act of getting married, and I just noticed 10 minutes ago on Facebook that a friend of mine just remarried 2 days ago in kind of an impromptu ceremony, that there is something that chemically changes between people when they get married, and it may not be something you feel right away. Many people will say, I don't feel any different. But there is something that just seems to change with the legal part of it. And I'm not saying it's better or worse. I think it's just different. But I've seen a number of people that have been together 20-plus years without marriage and have a very successful long-term relationship. And I can't really say whether I think that my version or theirs is better. I know that marriage, the idea of it meant something to me, not because of really strong religious need to do it or anything like that, but it felt right to me. But for other people, it doesn't. So who am I to say that you have to do it one way or the other?
We have seen, though, Andrea, we talk about long-term love. We have seen people, the divorce rate going up now among older people. And that's sad. I mean, but does that mean that things have been kept in and bottled up for a long time, finally just ended up bursting out?
Well, I think, we're in a culture now where divorce is a lot more acceptable than it was even 20 or 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think people are picturing living longer periods of time after their middle years, after they've perhaps raised their children. And I sit on a regular basis with people that are, say, 50-ish and say, I don't want to spend my last 30 years or so on this earth with someone that makes me miserable. And, while I encourage people to think about whether or not they can cultivate and re-engage in the marriage, at the same time, I can't begrudge them from thinking if I can't gain partnership with this person in a way that is a win-win for both of us, I don't want to do it anymore. And sometimes it takes that moment of crisis where the person is packing their stuff before, or even having them move out before the other person goes, maybe I do want to work on this problem. Maybe I do want to stop drinking. Maybe I do want to stop spending all of our money. Maybe I do think I should go out and get a job now. The kinds of things that matter to the other person that they were ignoring before because they've gotten away with behaving badly for 20 years. And, there's a real famous Dr. Phil quote that he would say, you teach people how to treat you. And if for 20 years you've allowed your spouse to not contribute at all in the household, then why would you think that it would be an overnight thing that they would suddenly change?
Oh, and his other famous quote is, how's that working for you?
Exactly. How's that working for you? Right. Exactly.
We have to recognize some things that usually the change has to start with us, not necessarily the other person.
Yes,
right?
Yes. And if I was to come and stand in front of you, nose to nose with you, 3 to 6 inches from your nose, chances are you would do something about it. If you felt threatened, you might step backwards. If you got angry, you might get aggressive with me. You might step sideways. You might ask me to step backwards. But you would do something. You wouldn't just let me stand nose to you with no response. So when I, as an adult, choose to behave differently with other adults, or for that matter with children, other things occur. I coached a mother about a week ago with her adult child that when she went to visit her, if her adult daughter got nasty with her, that it was okay to just leave for a little while and make it very clear that, I'm not going to just hang out in your home and have you speak to me that way. So she did. She disappeared for about 3 hours. And it was amazing how different the rest of their visit was.
Therapies have gone through various stages. I guess once upon a time there's primal screen therapy. There was,
yes.
You always had the counting to 10 kind of thing. But all of these things that are breaks, that cause a break, a pause in the action can be helpful.
Yes. Yeah, a timeout can be very helpful on a number of levels, both to communicate this isn't working and also to calm yourself down. Because when you're physiologically worked up, you can't solve a problem in that mode. And so if you or your partner is really upset, you're not going to solve anything from that. You've got to calm down. So the only thing that makes sense to do is figure out something to do. Go take a walk, go journal, go jump up and down, go listen to some music, go, do some push-ups, call a friend, whatever you need to do. But don't keep banging your head against the wall of we're going to solve this while we're angry.
In your book, again, Happy Marriages, 7 Secrets of Couples Who Found and Kept Long-Term Love, you interviewed a dozen or so couples, and were you surprised by any of the results?
I wouldn't say that I was surprised, but I sit with people all week long. I would say if there's anything surprising about it, it's the simplicity and basicness of their answers. It's kind of like saying, we all know that diet and exercise are the keys to a healthy lifestyle, but how many of us are actively engaged in doing those things? Building a sense of team, however that might look for you and your partner, is a fundamental piece of a relationship, is not really that big of a shock to people. Another thing that I found just really sweet was how many of the people and couples that I spoke to are so incredibly proud of their partner, whether it's because they're a hard worker or a great parent or a really devoted, community member or neighbor. They will brag on their spouse. And I just think that's really sweet that they have such admiration for their partner. And one of the best relationship books I have, one of the things it talks about is, what are you doing with someone who has traits? If they don't have a trait you admire and would want to take on yourself, what are you doing with that person?
Again, the book is called Happy Marriages, 7 Secrets of Couples Who Found and Kept Long-Term Love by Andrea Bishop. Out and available everywhere now, is that right?
It is. You can go to my website at AndreaBishop.com, and you can contact me for any kind of phone consultations you need on this topic.
All right. Thanks so much. We appreciate it, Andrea. This is Coastal Daybreak here on the Talk Station, FM 107 and AM 1240.